The pastor was laughing, not a happy laugh, a laugh that did not belong to a human being. His white robe was torn from his body, thrown on the floor, and the whole church watched in shock as their own man of God rolled on the ground, foaming, tearing at his own skin like something was crawling under it. Women screamed, men ran for the doors. Children were carried out crying, their small faces buried in their mother's shoulders. Chairs fell over. Someone's shoe was left behind in the rush. Nobody in that building had ever seen anything like this before, and nobody could explain it. But one small boy sitting quietly at the back was not surprised at all. He did not scream. He did not run. He simply watched because he was the only one who had seen this coming weeks before it happened. His name was Emeka. He was 7 years old, small for his age, with big round eyes that seemed to notice everything, the kind of eyes that made adults feel like he was staring straight through them. Every Sunday, his mother, Mama Ngozi, ironed his best shirt, tied her own wrapper neatly, and walked him down the dusty road to Grace Chapel, the biggest church in their town. Pastor Michael Okoro ran that church. Everybody loved him. He had a voice like thunder and a smile like sunshine. And when he preached, people cried and clapped and said amen until their throats hurt. He shook every hand at the door. He remembered every name. To the whole town, he was a good man, maybe even a great one. But one Sunday, while Pastor Michael stood at the front with his hands raised to heaven, Emeka saw something no one else could see. On top of the pastor's head sat a crown. Not a crown of gold, a crown made of black thorns, twisted and wet, like something pulled out of a grave. The thorns moved slowly, like they were alive, breathing almost, and blood dripped from them down the side of the pastor's face, though no one else in the church seemed to notice a single drop landing on his white collar. Emeka tugged his mother's sleeve. "Mama, why does Pastor have thorns on his head? Why is he bleeding?" Mama Ngozi looked at the pastor, clean face, bright smile, nothing there at all. She pinched Emeka's arm and told him to be quiet, that this was the house of God and not a place for silly talk. But Emeka would not stop staring. He tilted his head, squinted his eyes, even rubbed them, thinking maybe he was tired. The thorns did not disappear. Every Sunday after that, they were there, sitting heavier and heavier, and every Sunday only he could see them. Finally, his mother had enough. Embarrassed by the whispers of other church members, she took Emeka to the pastor's office to apologize for her son's strange behavior. Pastor Michael only laughed, a warm, easy laugh, and said the boy was probably just hungry, that children sometimes see funny things when their stomach is empty. He pressed some money into Mama Ngozi's hand for food and patted Emeka's head, right where the thorns had been sitting on his own. Emeka flinched at the touch, like something cold had passed through him, but he said nothing more. His mother thanked the pastor many times on their way out, relieved that the matter was closed, holding the money tightly like it proved everything was fine. But it was not closed. Weeks later, the pastor stood before his congregation, mid-sermon, Bible open in his hand, sweat already forming on his brow, though the fans were running. He stopped talking mid-sentence. His eyes rolled back into his head, and then came the laughter, the same terrible laughter from the beginning of our story. He tore off his robe. He tore off his shirt, buttons scattering across the tiled floor. Grown men who tried to hold him down were thrown off like he had the strength of 10 men. Tables flipping, microphones screeching with feedback. Prayers were shouted over him for hours. Elders anointed him with oil. poured water, called on every name of God they knew. Nothing worked. By nightfall, his family came from the village and carried him away, ashamed and terrified, because the man everyone thought was untouchable had broken completely, and no one understood why. Now tell me quickly, in the comment section below, where in the world are you watching this from? I want to see how far this story is traveling tonight. So drop your city and your country, then keep watching. Because the truth behind this curse is darker than anyone in that church imagined. That same week, Emeka had a dream. In the dream, a woman dressed in pure white stood in a field of golden grass that stretched further than his eyes could follow, holding a small baby wrapped in soft cloth. The woman did not speak. She simply lifted the baby's tiny hand and pointed it straight at a picture of Pastor Michael hanging on a wall in the dream. Then the woman began to cry, silent tears that fell like rain, and the whole field turned dark, the golden grass shriveling into ash beneath her bare feet. Emeka woke up shaking, his small chest heaving. He ran to his mother's room in the dark and told her everything, word for word, his voice trembling. Mama Ngozi's face went pale as she listened, her hands gripping the edge of her blanket. She held her son close and told him in a low and serious voice never to speak about this dream to anyone outside their home. Something told her this was not an ordinary dream. Something told her this was a message, and messages like this were dangerous for a woman with a young son to carry alone. But a mother's heart cannot rest when her child keeps seeing what other eyes cannot see. So Mama Ngozi did something she had never done before in her whole life. She visited an old woman on the edge of town known simply as Mama Chidinma, a woman said to speak with ancestors and see what was hidden from ordinary people. Mama Ngozi sat on a low wooden stool in front of her, hands shaking, and told her everything: the thorns, the blood, the laughing pastor, the woman in white, the crying baby pointing a tiny finger. Mama Chidinma closed her eyes for a long moment before she spoke, rocking slightly as if listening to something far away. She said that 3 years before Emeka was even born, Pastor Michael was not yet a pastor. He was a young choir boy in a small village church, and he had loved a girl named Amara. Amara was gentle, kind, the kind of girl who sang louder than anyone else during Sunday service, whose laughter could be heard across the whole compound. When Amara became pregnant with his child, Michael panicked. Instead of standing beside her, he ran. He left the village in the night, changed his name in the city, and built a new life, a new church, a new reputation. While Amara stayed behind, carrying the shame alone, facing the whispers and pointed fingers of the whole village by herself. Amara's family tried to help her, but during the birth, something went terribly wrong. Both Amara and her baby died before the sun rose that morning. Her father, broken beyond words, stood over both graves in the early light and made a vow to the ancestors that the man who abandoned his daughter would never know peace again, not until justice found him, wherever he ran to hide, however far, however many years it took. That justice had been quietly building for years, waiting patiently in the dark, until it finally caught up with the man now known as Pastor Michael Okoro. Emeka's mother sat frozen as she listened, tears filling her own eyes. She understood now. The thorns Emeka saw were not thorns at all. They were guilt, grief, and a broken promise sitting heavy on a man's head for everyone with true sight to witness. The woman in white was Amara, and the baby pointing was her child, both still waiting after everything, simply to be remembered and honored the way they deserved. Before I continue, tell me honestly, have you ever met someone in real life who looks successful on the outside, but you could somehow feel something heavy sitting on them? Type yes below, and don't forget to tell me your location too, because I really do want to know how many countries are watching this story with me right now. News eventually reached the town that Pastor Michael never recovered. He remained in his village, a shadow of the man he once was, cared for by relatives who no longer understood him, mumbling to himself on the veranda, staring at nothing. But something changed for Emeka. His dreams grew quiet again. He stopped seeing thorns on strangers. His mother believed that once the truth was finally spoken aloud, once Amara's story was no longer hidden, the spirits of the mother and child could finally rest. And so, in a strange way, could Emeka. Years later, grown and studying to become a teacher, Emeka would still remember that Sunday morning clearly, the crown of thorns, the blood no one else could see, and the lesson his grandmother once whispered to him by candlelight. She said that the eyes of a child are sometimes closer to God than the eyes of a grown man, because a child has not yet learned how to look away from the truth. And that, my friend, is the story of the little boy who saw thorns on the pastor's head. If this story touched something in you tonight, if it gave you even one chill down your spine, let me know in the comments. And remember, some debts follow us quietly for years, but they always find their way home.